Well, I have one more thing I want to talk about before we let you
Oh,
go, because
Jonathan, you're
Okay,
killing me.
I heard that you just wrote a
Mhm.
children's book, and I want to know a little bit more about it.
so yes, I decided that, I always had this kind of book in the back of my head when I was teaching preschool because I thought, these kids would ask me things like, Miss Tiffany, can you buy me these cookies? Or Miss Tiffany, can you buy me this toy? And then I would say something like, well, Jeremiah, like, Miss Tiffany doesn't have any money. Because, I'm like 22, 23. And they're like, yes, you do. Look in your purse. Because kids think that your purse generates money automatically. I remember one time this little boy Jaheim told me, "Can we go to the wall?" And I didn't know what he was talking about. And then one day we're going for our daily walk and we passed the ATM. He said, "Finally, a wall." And I just burst out into laughing because he really believed that there was a magical wall that just gave adults money. I'm like, oh, it must be so nice to be a kid.
Mm.
But what it made me realize is that, is there a way to be age appropriate with financial education with kids as little as 3 and 4? Let's see. So we started with penny drives because kids love counting. And I knew, like, a lot of parents were struggling financially. So I didn't want, I wanted to do a fundraise without, asking parents to give money when they didn't have it. So pennies are things that you often can find on the ground. So kids were bringing pennies. I had one of those big water cooler bottles, and they love just dropping it in there because it's sensory too. Like you hearing the clink, and they feel like autonomous. And so every week we would dump it out and then we would count it. So counting is a pre-financial education skill. So we would count it and then we would talk about what are some of the ways that you can use this money. Who can we help with this money? So that was something too, learning about donating and thinking of others, less versus more. That's also a pre-financial education skill. So then I started making up stories for them to learn some of these lessons because I noticed that when I was trying to get through to a 3 or 4 year old, just saying, hey, we don't hit our friends wasn't enough. So sometimes I would pull out a book specifically that showed maybe like, this mouse and this mouse are friends, but this mouse pushes the other mouse and they're not friends anymore. And so then children can then project and say, well, that's why they're not friends. And I'm like, yes, just like when you hit Jonathan.
Don't hit
Right?
me.
And I know. And so I had this like kind of story of this girl in my head that because I feel like kids also like to follow a character. And so I created her. Her name is Molly Moore. And she actually, I don't know if they can see it, but you guys can
No,
see. She actually,
I'm gonna put it on the screen here to show the book.
so she actually looks like I did back then with my little Michael Jackson afro and like her super chocolate skin. And I wanted, because also too, so I taught in Newark, New Jersey, where most of the kids look like Molly. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't see enough books that have little kids on it that look like this. And so through her book, so this book is about it's her birthday and she starts to get more and more presents. And at first, she's excited about her family and friends. And then she starts to pay more attention to the stuff. And there's a rhyme, the book rhymes, but there's one rhyme in particular that goes, each time a new guest comes to the door, more, says Molly, more, more,
Mm.
more. And so it kind of reaches this fever pitch where there's no place for her friends and family to sit. It's just a room full of presents, and she's just focused on the presents. And when it's time to blow out her candle, it's just her presents, and her birthday cake. And she realizes what does more really mean? And she decides to donate some of her gifts because she gets multiple gifts, like 3 phones and 4 dolls. So she donates some of her gifts to a local community center, which you see in here. So you get to really learn like what does more mean. So it's less versus more. It's donating, it's sharing. But also too, I don't think like folks understand that even rhyming is a pre-financial education skill because rhyming is the beginning of math. Like if ask anyone who writes music, music is math. Like how many notes are in you could talk about how many eighths are in the fourth, I don't know, but like music is math. But even in the rhyming there's like counting involved, so it's like 2 books, 4 cats, 6 dogs in a ball, duh, 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 duh. Like so even when we're teaching kids how to count, typically we're starting with rhyming. So there are all these nuances that preschool teacher
Mm.
Tiffany just like infused in there, and it just seems like this fun book. And then in the back, because I know a lot of parents and educators don't know how to pull in these lessons, so I have extend the lesson questions and extend the lesson activities. Because when I used to teach, I would read books and then I would then use that book as like a starting point for the lesson of the day. And I thought, what if I can make it easy for a parent or a teacher to do so? So I'm honestly, it's like 15 years in the making. I'm so proud of it. I'm usually pretty hard on myself. Like I'm not typically impressed with anything that I do. I'm like,
I'm
I guess.
impressed. I'm impressed. Um,
We've already sold. It's only been 2 months. We've already sold 10,000
wow.
copies.
Wow.
And I tell you, parents are equally elated and annoyed because they're like, my kid will only let me read this book for the next 20 days straight. Tiffany, get this book out of my house. And so yeah, I'm just really proud of it. I can't wait. It's one of like a series. So I'm working on the second one now. And just
Awesome.
like, yeah, it's just full circle where I get to blend the two loves, financial education and being a preschool teacher into one delightful project.
That's incredible. Yeah, it sounds like a book about abundance, truly.
Mhm.
And it's called Happy Birthday Molly Moore, and that's
RE.
MALIMORE.
And
Awesome.
that's where you can get it from mollymore.com. And so,
Well,
like I said, it's really, there are things that I'm really proud of, but this is definitely like top 5 to be able to do something like this. I just feel something in me like if you can get kids early with just like that mindset shift, then you won't have the adults who are just like swimming in debt and feeling so hopeless. And, because that's why I'm here because of what my father and my mother poured into me and my sisters. Despite the mistakes that I made, I was still able to see my way out on the other side because of that early intervention with financial education. I think every kid deserves that. And every parent deserves tools to help them do that.
I love that. Our missions are so aligned. In fact, we started a nonprofit with a lot of the ethos that you just described to try to get a financial literacy curriculum into schools for pre-K through 12. And I'll tell you, my wife sent me to the library with the desired list of books to focus on these young kids to have these money lessons. There were scarce resources out there. And so I told you just offline ahead of this call, but like, we're going to take a look at getting this book included as one of the recommended resources in the curriculum just because I know the content you produce. I can vouch for the quality of the content and to see, someone from this community, from this personal finance community looking through the lens of a preschool teacher, what would I want my child to know? And then to be able to have that implemented with this growth mindset. What if you could avoid these mistakes? It's incredibly powerful. So you're doing amazing things. You've done amazing things. I'm so excited to see where your brand, your mission, your movement goes from here. And on our parts, we can't wait to figure out what we can do to support you and see you go even farther. So thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.